Hello, my name is Haley, and I am here to show you a little bit about a lesson module that I have created. The lesson module that I have created is about real world math, and it's for third grade students who are in a math class. This starts out with a little bit of an intro. I'm not going to play it, but it's going to have me start it, but it's a little bit of an intro, just kind of to get them excited about learning and give them an idea about what we're going to be talking about. I made it a little bit fun for students who might be interested in learning visually, and that those visual colors and pictures kind of grab their attention and get them interested. So, this first note to teacher is just kind of giving an idea for the teachers of what they're going to be talking about in this lesson. And it even gives this real world math newsletter that they can share with the parents and they can share with the students as well. This can be updated as the week goes on, just kind of sharing what's going on in the lesson. It gives QR codes to different uh, topics that we might go over and different resources that we can use in that lesson. And then it gives an idea of what we're going to do, and of course allows the parents and students to reach out to their teacher. So then the next slide goes over the academic standard. Now, this is a Common Core learning standard, and it's just interpreting the numbers of or the product of whole numbers as a story problem. So it gives an example here is 5 times 7, and it's the total of objects in a group, 5 groups of 7 objects. And so then they can go on to talk about that as 5 times 7 or 7 times 5. And so the learning objectives is just what the students hopefully are going to be able to know by the end of this lesson. This lesson's learning objectives is that the student is going to be able to implement and identify multiplication in the real world scenarios that they're in every day. So not only are they going to be able to see a situation and say, that's multiplication, but they're also going to be able to implement that in the scenario that they're in. The students will be able to describe a situation where groups of objects can be expressed as a multiplication expression. So then it goes on to get an example of what exactly that means, which is basically just you give a story where 4 things times 5 can equal 4 times 5. For example, 4 pages of a book, 4 6 days equals 4 times 6. And so the next one is students will be able to generate a multiplication expression from a given real world scenario. So if we gave students a real world scenario, the hope is by the end of this lesson that they can generate a multiplication expression because of that. Oh, we're skipping ahead. Next is the engage phase. Now, this phase is just something for the students to be able to engage themselves in the lesson before we actually start it. So, here we have a little story problem that kind of gets the students engaged in the lesson. It asks them a question. Have you ever wanted to do something like this? And then it says, well, here, this is what we're going to learn in the lesson that we're doing. And then it gives them a couple of steps, just an outline of what we're going to be learning. The next phase is the explore phase, and this phase gives the students an opportunity to jump in and explore what it is that we're going to be learning. So in this phase, we have a couple of links over here where the students can choose one of them to explore, and if they want to do some more other than the one, they're allowed to do that as well. So the first one is just a little Jeopardy game, and they can just do no teams and play this on their own. There's different categories. There's the find the equation one, where it gives you a story problem, and the students find an equation based off that story problem. There's the problems, and it just gives them a problem where the students have to solve it. There's find the answer, where they get a a story problem and they have to find the answer to it. So instead of saying that story problem is 4 times 6, they have to say that story problem is 24. That's the answer. This next one is the rules. So this one talks about what the first step is. What's the first thing you ask yourself? Well, that's what do I have? What do I know? And then there's just this bonus section that is kind of just any of the above. So it's kind of the students are able to check what they know without knowing what they're going to be expecting. And this is a great opportunity for students to explore because it not only gives them an opportunity to ask themselves these questions, but it also gives them an opportunity to see if their answer is right or wrong and learn that it's okay to have mistakes because we aren't going to know everything on the first go around. So, next is a quizzes. And this is something that I have made for the students that they are able to kind of go through. And it's a lot like the Google Slides, but it's more interactive. It allows them to ask themselves questions like this one says, do you like math? Now that starts off a little bit easy, but it kind of just asks them how they're doing in the product and then also gives them options to or opportunities to test themselves and see what they already know. And so if we go in, it will start to, let's see, it'll tell you if you're right or wrong, but it'll start to ask them lots of questions. First, this kind of is like a story problem that we're going along with, but as they go on, it gives them some videos that they can get into to look into a little bit more. But then it also gives them a little quiz. Here we go, we're into the quiz. And so you get to choose a scenario. One of these scenarios can be expressed by this equation. And it's timed and it just gives them a moment to kind of test themselves. So if they got it wrong, it'll show them the right answer. And I really like this Explore tool because it allows them to find out what the right answer really is. So even if they don't have the right answer, it's okay. They still learned something, and that's what really matters. So then this next tool is Gizmos. And I like this tool because it allows the students to kind of, oh, okay. Well, the students would have an account for this because it's through the school, but it allows the students to test to see what it's like adding more leaves or adding more ladybugs. It's kind of a little simulation that allows the students to use that. But ideally for this, they would have the teacher would have the Gizmos account already prepared for them. So after that, then they can talk about what they already knew and then what they learned as well, because it is very important to remember that we are learning. So we're not supposed to know everything already at the start. So it's okay to get things wrong and see what we've learned from that. And I really like the idea of the students self-reflecting on what they have learned. So this next phase that we're going to go into is the explain phase. And this phase just goes into what is it that we're learning. So we talked about what we're going to be learning, and now it's time to do that learning. What is multiplication? Why does it matter? And where do we use it? And so this talks about what exactly you're going to expect to learn in these next slides. This slide tells us a story problem, and it tells us how to solve the story problem and explains in detail what we can do. So this one's good for visual learners who kind of learn at their own pace because they get the chance to look at this picture and they get the chance to learn at their own pace. Maybe they're not ready to go at the pace that the rest of the class is going, or maybe they learn faster than everyone else. So every student has their own pace, and it's really good to give that option for students to learn at their own pace. This next slide is for students who are more auditorial learners along with visual learning so that they are able to watch the teacher as the teacher explains what it is that they're doing and shows it. So maybe listening to the teacher say the steps out loud helps them learn better than just seeing it put down on a piece of paper. And after this, they can write down, there's an equation at the end of the video that they have to solve, and they get to write down so that they can just double check, see if they can do this on their own, and then they can go over that in class. So this next phase that we're going to get into, if it'll let me pause this next phase that we're going to get into is the apply phase. And this is one of my favorite because it gives the students so many options to apply what they have learned, as every student learns in a different way. So this has got, I'm going to exit out here. This phase has got all kinds of different options for the students to learn. It shows different Google Jamboards, and it has the links up here. There are just different ways of approaching exactly what we're learning, different ways of approaching and different ways of applying them. So one of them talks about what you can do in your home that you can apply this to. One of them talks about creativity and creating your own story problem and creating the equation that goes with it. And then one of them shows you how one equation can relate to two different story problems and more, but two different story problems on the same story. So the same thing as saying 5 times 8 is the same as 5 plates of 8 grapes or 8 plates of 5 grapes. So the students kind of dive into that world of how they can change that in different ways. So then the next option is the comic book option. Maybe you have a student who is very artistic and loves to show how they learn by drawing. And so this way, the student is able to create a story and just draw out a comic book and show what that story is and how to solve this problem for that story. The next one is composition. Maybe you have a student who also likes to show what they're doing by writing a story, but they're not very good at drawing. So they can just write out a story on a piece of paper and they can turn that into their teacher, showing them how to solve a problem in that story. The next one is Edpuzzle. And this one is a link to a video that I've created on Edpuzzle that also shows different like questions throughout the video so that the student is able to make sure that they're fully engaging. I find this very helpful because a lot of the time as I watch videos sometimes it's hard to make sure that you're really focused and engaged in that video. And so these questions throughout the video allow the student to make sure that they are fully engaged in what they're watching. The next one is YouTube. And this one is for your really creative students who like to put themselves out there. This one is where your student can make a video of them talking about their story problem and upload that to YouTube and show what their story problem is, explain how they have an equation that can solve that story problem and how it relates to that. The next one is Google Forms. Maybe you have some test takers in your class who really appreciate taking tests. This option allows them to take a test that I've made that I just ask all kinds of varying different questions. It kind of hits all of the different topics that we talked on. How you can make a story problem out of an equation, and how you can make an equation out of a story problem, and all the different ways we've gone through around that. And finally, we have a create option where maybe your student is really struggling with all of these options, but he or she can help you come up with a new option. That way, you are able to teach them in the way that they best learn. And so, as we pull up these notes down here, it gives directions for the students for each one of the options below or above so that they know exactly what they are to do. So this next slide is how they kind of turn in their work. What activity did you choose? Why did you choose this activity? And what did you learn from this activity? If there's a link or pictures that you used for your project, you can post them up here so that your teacher can see what you've done. And that way you're sharing what you've done. This next phase is the reflect phase. This phase is very important in the student learning process because it allows the student to ask themselves, have I learned something? Did I give my best effort whenever I was learning this? What was it that helped me learn best? How can I use this knowledge and what am I going to do from here? And so this also helps your teacher as well because this helps give a personalized learning experience from the teacher to the students because it allows the students to say, what was it that helped me learn best? What would I do differently that may have helped me learn better? How did the teacher learn, or how did the teacher explain the lesson? And did that help me? And how did the teacher allow the students to practice the material and apply that? Did that help me? So would I do this the same or differently? And it allows the teacher to kind of look at their students' responses and see how their students are learning. Maybe you have a class full of visual learners and auditory learners, and videos are the best way for your students to learn. Or maybe you have some learners that are more hands on, and maybe they need to do something where they are learning multiplication by using cubes and using those hands on activities. Or maybe you have students who learn on their own, and just looking at a slide that explains it is really easy for them, and that helps them learn best. But it is best for the teacher to look at this response and take it from there, what they're going to do with the students, so that the students can get the best educational journey that they have. Okay, the next phase is share, and this is the final phase. This phase allows students to ask themselves, what now? What am I going to do with what I have learned? Where am I going to take this? What's the point in learning this if you don't know what you're going to do now? And so this is just kind of giving the students the opportunity. How am I going to share this with others? So here it says, this is your turn. I've taught you something. Now it's your turn to teach others. So you've got different opportunities to do this. You can use Scratch to make a game. You can use Quizlet or Kahoot to make a quiz or some type of flashcards. Or you can use YouTube to make a video of how you're helping someone in your family or one of your friends. You can go into your classroom, and during some time that your teachers may allow you, you can help some other students in your class who are struggling. Or you can do this virtually by posting something on your Google Classroom or some other form of your online class. And you can post a virtual thing sharing with your fellow students what it was that helped you learn, so that you're able to share what it was that you've learned. So, this is my real world math online lesson module, and I hope that you have learned something from this. Maybe it has become helpful to you to see how it is that I teach and how it is I enjoy my students teaching. Thank you so very much, and I hope you enjoy. Bye bye.